The ceramic mug slipped from my mother's trembling fingers and crashed against the kitchen floor. Margaret stood frozen, staring at the shattered pieces while her hands shook uncontrollably. Just minutes before, she had been preparing Emma's special lucky tea for today's gymnastics competition, the same ritual we had followed for months. But this morning, distracted by a phone call, she grabbed the wrong cup and downed the entire mixture herself. Now, her heart was racing, her pupils were dilated, and something was terribly, horribly wrong. The ambulance ride felt like an eternity. Margaret's breathing had become labored, and her skin had turned pale and clammy. Emma sat beside me in the emergency room waiting area, her small gymnastics bag still clutched in her hands, asking over and over why Grandma was acting so strange. Mommy, is Grandma gonna be okay? Emma whispered, her 9-year-old eyes wide with fear. I wrapped my arm around her tiny shoulders, trying to project calm while my own world was spinning. The doctors are taking good care of her, sweetheart. But inside, I was terrified. Margaret had gone from cheerful and energetic to jittery and disoriented in less than 20 minutes. The paramedics had asked me repeatedly what she might have consumed, and all I could tell them was that she had accidentally drunk Emma's pre-competition tea. Dr. Hartwell emerged from behind the curtained area where they had taken Margaret. His expression was grave as he approached us. He was a tall man with kind eyes, but those eyes now held deep concern. "Ms. Lisa, I need to speak with you privately," he said, glancing meaningfully at Emma. My stomach dropped. "Emma, honey, why don't you go get a juice from the vending machine? Here's some quarters." I handed her the coins with shaking fingers. Once Emma was out of earshot, Dr. Hartwell pulled me aside. "Your mother's blood work shows extremely elevated levels of stimulants. We found traces of caffeine in doses that would be dangerous for an adult her size, along with several herbal compounds I can't identify without further testing." "What does that mean?" My voice came out as barely a whisper. "It means whatever was in that tea could have caused serious cardiac complications. Her heart rate is still dangerously high and her blood pressure is spiking. We've managed to stabilize her, but Lisa, I have to ask, has your daughter been drinking this same mixture?" The question hit me like a physical blow. She has been drinking it before every competition for about 6 months. My mom said it was just herbs for focus and energy. Dr. Hartwell's face darkened. "I need to examine Emma immediately. If she's been consuming these substances regularly, there could be serious health consequences." The world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. What kind of consequences? One, stunted growth, heart rhythm, irregularities, sleep disorders, potential liver and kidney damage. Children's bodies aren't equipped to process these kinds of stimulants. I felt sick. Emma had been complaining about stomach aches lately, and she had been having trouble sleeping. I had attributed it to competition nerves, but now? "Can you tell me exactly what your daughter has been experiencing lately? Any changes in behavior, appetite, sleep patterns?" My mind raced back through the past few months. "She's been more moody than usual. She used to sleep through the night, but lately she's been waking up around 3 in the morning and can't get back to sleep. And she's lost weight even though she's been eating the same amount." Dr. Hartwell nodded grimly. "Those are all consistent with stimulant use. We need to run a complete blood panel on Emma right away." Emma returned with her juice box, skipping slightly, unaware that our world was crashing down around us. Her cheeks looked hollow now that I really looked at her. When had she gotten so thin? "Sus, sweetheart, the doctor wants to do a quick checkup on you too, just to make sure you're feeling okay." "But what about my competition?" Emma asked. "Coach Patricia is expecting me there in 2 hours." "We'll worry about that later," I said, my voice strained. The blood draw was quick, but the wait for results felt endless. Emma sat on the examination table, swinging her legs while I paced the small room. Every few minutes, I would glance through the window toward the area where Margaret was being treated. She was awake now, but still connected to monitors. Dr. Hartwell returned with a tablet in his hands and an expression that made my heart sink. Lisa Emma's blood work confirms my suspicions. She has elevated levels of the same compounds we found in your mother's system, plus some others. Others? No, synthetic compounds that aren't naturally occurring. This wasn't just a homemade herbal tea. Someone has been giving your daughter manufactured stimulants. I stared at him in shock. That's impossible. My mother would never. The levels in Emma's blood suggest regular systematic consumption over an extended period. Her body has actually built up a tolerance, which is why she hasn't shown more severe symptoms. But Lisa, this could have killed her if the doses had been increased much more. The room started spinning. I grabbed the edge of the examination table to steady myself. Are you saying my mother has been poisoning my daughter? I'm saying someone has been giving your daughter dangerous substances disguised as herbal tea. Emma's growth charts show she's fallen behind expected development for her age. Her heart rate is elevated even at rest. These aren't natural effects of athletics training. I looked at Emma, who was quietly coloring in a book the nurse had given her. She looked so small, so fragile. How had I not seen it? How had I trusted so blindly? What do we do now? I asked. Ears, Emma needs to be admitted for observation and detox monitoring. We need to flush these compounds from her system safely. And Lisa, you need to find out exactly what was in that tea and who provided it. This isn't something your mother could have created by accident. As if summoned by our conversation, a nurse appeared in the doorway. Dr. Hartwell, the patient in bed 3, is asking for her daughter. Yeah, that's my mom, I told Emma. Stay here with Dr. Hartwell for just a minute, okay? I walked on unsteady legs to Margaret's bedside. She was propped up looking pale but more alert than she had hours earlier. When she saw me, her eyes filled with tears. Oh, Lisa, honey, I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. I just reached for the wrong cup. Mom, what exactly was in Emma's tea? Something flickered across her face so quickly I almost missed it. Just herbs, sweetheart. Things to help her focus and have energy for her routines. What kind of herbs, Dr. Hartwell found stimulants, Mom? Dangerous ones. Margaret's eyes darted away from mine. I got them from a specialty shop. The woman there said they were completely natural. What woman? What shop? I can't remember the name right now. My head is still fuzzy. But I could see in her eyes that she was lying. Margaret had one of the sharpest memories of anyone I knew. She never forgot details, especially about anything related to Emma. Mom, Emma is being admitted to the hospital. The doctors think she's been poisoned. Poisoned? Margaret's voice rose. That's ridiculous. I would never hurt Emma. Everything I've done has been to help her succeed. Help her succeed at what cost? She's been winning, hasn't she? Making the team placing in competitions. Before my tea, she was just average. The admission hung in the air between us. Margaret realized what she had said, and her face flushed red. I mean, the tea just gave her confidence. No, Mom, the tea gave her drugs. I walked away before she could respond, my hands clenched into fists. Back in Emma's room, Dr. Hartwell was explaining to my daughter that she would need to stay in the hospital overnight. But what about gymnastics? Emma asked, tears starting to form in her eyes. We need to make sure you're healthy first, I said, sitting beside her on the bed. That's more important than any competition. But Grandma said the tea would make me strong enough to win states. My blood ran cold. Emma, how did the tea make you feel when you drank it? Weird. Like my heart was going really fast and I felt buzzy. Sometimes my tummy hurt after, but Grandma said that meant it was working. I looked at Dr. Hartwell, who was taking notes on his tablet. The systematic poisoning of my daughter had been disguised as love and support, and I had let it happen. Emma was settled into her hospital room for the night, finally sleeping peacefully for the first time in months, according to the night nurse. I kissed her forehead and drove through the dark streets to Margaret's house, my mind churning with questions and rage. Margaret lived in a pristine 2-story colonial in the suburbs, the same house where I had grown up. I used my spare key to let myself in, flipping on lights as I moved through rooms that suddenly felt foreign and threatening. In the kitchen, I examined every cabinet, every shelf. The mug Margaret had been drinking from was still in pieces on the floor where it had fallen that morning. I swept up the ceramic shards, noticing they were stained brown from whatever mixture had been inside. I found nothing unusual in the kitchen, so I moved to Margaret's bedroom upstairs. Her dresser, nightstand, and closet revealed nothing but the usual accumulation of a 72-year-old woman's life. But when I knelt to check under her bed, my fingers touched something unexpected. A small wooden box pushed far back against the wall. Inside the box were dozens of unmarked glass vials filled with various powders and liquids. Some were white, others yellow or greenish. None had labels, but there were small pieces of masking tape with numbers written in Margaret's handwriting. Beneath the vials was a thick notebook bound with a rubber band. My hands trembled as I opened the notebook. The first page was titled Emma's Enhancement Program and dated 8 months ago, a month before the Lucky Tea ritual had begun. The entries were meticulous and disturbing. Bar Day 1 Baseline Measurement. Emma 3 feet 11 inches 52 pounds. Average performance scores. Must improve focus and energy levels for competitive success. The Day 15 introduced Formula A caffeine extract ginseng compound. Emma showed improved attention during practice. Coach Patricia noted increased enthusiasm. Day 23, Emma complained of stomach issues, reduced Formula A by half, added digestive aids. Day 31, competition day, Emma placed third in floor exercise. Formula A effective but needs enhancement. The entries continued documenting a gradual increase in dosages and the introduction of new substances. Margaret had been treating Emma like a laboratory experiment. Day 87, new supplier provides stronger compounds. Emma's time's improving significantly. Lisa hasn't noticed anything unusual. New supplier. My mother had been buying drugs for my daughter from multiple sources. I flipped through more pages, each one revealing deeper levels of deception. Margaret had been researching child athletes online, printing articles about performance enhancement and corresponding with other parents through forums I had never heard of. One printed email exchange made my blood run cold. Or Margaret B., my granddaughter, has plateaued. Current formula not producing results anymore. Sports, Mom 47. That happens. Bodies build tolerance. You need to cycle to stronger alternatives. Margaret B., is it safe for 9-year-olds? Sports, Mom 47 defined safe. My daughter is nationally ranked now. Some risks are worth taking. I found receipts tucked between the pages. Margaret had spent over $3,000 in 6 months purchasing compounds from 3 different online suppliers. The most recent receipt was dated just 2 days ago. She had ordered something called Advanced Youth Formula that was scheduled to arrive next week. Near the back of the notebook were pages of handwritten observations about Emma's behavior performance scores and physical development. Margaret had been documenting everything with scientific precision. Emma's sleep patterns disrupted. Normal response to increased stimulation. Will monitor. Lisa questioned Emma's mood changes, told her it was normal preteen development. Emma lost 4 pounds this month. Excellent progress. Leaner physique, improving performance scores. 4 pounds. Emma had lost 4 pounds, and I thought it was just a growth spurt. The final entries were the most disturbing. Emma is beginning to resist drinking full doses. May need to increase palatability or find alternative delivery method. Spoke with Coach Patricia about advanced training opportunities. Emma needs higher performance levels to qualify. Current enhancement insufficient. Researching next-level compounds. Emma's potential being wasted with current limitations. I sat on Margaret's bedroom floor, surrounded by the evidence of her systematic manipulation and child endangerment. But what terrified me most was realizing how carefully she had planned this. Every question I had asked, every concern I had raised, she had been ready with explanations that sounded reasonable. I photographed every page of the notebook and every vial in the box. Then I continued searching the house. In Margaret's basement, I found more evidence. She had set up a makeshift laboratory with measuring cup scales and mixing equipment. There were charts taped to the walls showing Emma's competition scores over the past year with annotations marking dosage increases and formula changes. But the most shocking discovery was hidden behind boxes of Christmas decorations, a video camera on a tripod, pointed at a wall covered with photographs and competition footage of other young gymnasts. Margaret had been filming Emma's competitions and comparing her performance to other children frame by frame. She had charts analyzing every routine, every landing, every stumble. Some of the other children in the photographs looked familiar. They were from Emma's gym. I found a folder labeled Recruitment Prospects, containing information about 5 other families from the gymnastics center. Margaret had researched these families online, printed their social media photos, and made notes about the children's performance levels and the parents' apparent ambition levels. One file made me gasp out loud. It contained detailed notes about a family whose daughter, Sophie, was 10 years old and showing natural talent that could be enhanced. Margaret had written down Sophie's mother's work schedule, her father's business travels, and notes about their marriage problems. Oh, Sarah Chen appears overwhelmed with coaching responsibilities. Father traveling frequently, opportunity to offer support and guidance. Sophie could benefit from proven enhancement methods. Margaret wasn't just poisoning Emma, she was planning to expand her operation to other children. I called Dr. Hartwell immediately, even though it was after midnight. Doctor, this is Lisa. I found something at my mother's house. She's been documenting everything. This wasn't accidental. It was systematic experimentation on Emma. How extensive is the documentation? Months of detailed records, drug sources, dosage schedules, performance tracking. And doctor, I think she was planning to involve other children. There was a long pause. Lisa, you need to contact the police immediately. What you're describing sounds like organized child endangerment, and you need to preserve all that evidence. I've already photographed everything. Oh, good. But Lisa, there's something else. We got your mother's complete blood work back. Some of the compounds in her system aren't available through normal suppliers. These are substances typically associated with performance-enhancing drug networks. What does that mean? It means your mother has connections to people who supply drugs to athletes. This may be bigger than just your family. I hung up and sat in Margaret's basement laboratory, surrounded by the evidence of her obsession. Emma's innocent face smiled at me from dozens of photographs pinned to the walls, and I realized that my mother had stolen my daughter's childhood and health in pursuit of some twisted vision of success. But tomorrow, I would begin fighting back. The next morning, I drove straight to Elite Gymnastics Center before visiting Emma at the hospital. The building was a converted warehouse with high ceilings, bright fluorescent lights, and the constant sound of children's voices echoing off the walls. I had always loved this place, but now it felt sinister and dangerous. Coach Patricia was working with a group of level 4 gymnasts, calling out corrections as they practiced on the beam. She was a woman in her 40s with graying brown hair pulled back in a perpetual ponytail, someone I had trusted completely with Emma's athletic development. Patricia, I need to speak with you privately. She glanced at her watch. Can it wait? I have classes until 3. My daughter is in the hospital because of drug poisoning. It can't wait. Patricia's face went pale. She called another coach over to take her group and led me to her cramped office behind the front desk. What do you mean, drug poisoning? Emma has been systematically given performance-enhancing stimulants for months. My mother has been documenting everything. Patricia, I need to know if you were aware of what was happening. Patricia sat down heavily in her desk chair. Lisa, I had no idea Emma was taking anything like that. But you've noticed her improvement, right? Her sudden jump in skill level. Well, yes, Emma has been progressing remarkably fast this season. I thought she was just maturing as an athlete. I studied Patricia's face looking for signs of deception. She appeared genuinely shocked, but something felt off about her responses. Patricia Emma went from struggling with basic routines to placing in competitions within a few months. That didn't seem unusual to you. Some children hit growth spurts and everything clicks. It happens. Show me Emma's progress records. Patricia hesitated. I don't keep detailed individual records for recreational level athletes. Emma isn't recreational level anymore. You moved her to pre-team. Lisa, I'm not sure what you're trying to imply. I pulled out my phone and showed her one of the photographs I had taken from Margaret's notebook. It was a page titled Coach Patricia Collaboration Schedule. Patricia's face crumpled as she read the page. After a long moment, she looked up at me with tears in her eyes. Your mother approached me about 3 months ago. She said Emma had natural talent, but needed extra support to reach her potential. What kind of support? Margaret asked me to provide specialized training reports and to recommend Emma for competitions above her level. She said she was documenting everything for college scholarship purposes. Why, man, you agreed to lie about Emma's abilities. She wasn't asking me to lie exactly. Emma was improving rapidly. Margaret just wanted me to emphasize the positive aspects and downplay any areas where Emma was struggling. I felt my anger rising. Patricia, my daughter has been poisoned. She's 9 years old and she's in the hospital, detoxing from drugs. And you helped cover up her artificial enhancement. I never knew about any drugs. Margaret told me she was giving Emma natural supplements for focus and nutrition. What else did my mother ask you to do? Patricia was crying now. She paid me to provide extra training sessions and to write letters of recommendation for advanced programs. She said Emma needed opportunities to show her potential. How much did she pay you? $500 a month. I stared at her in disbelief. You took money to falsify my daughter's athletic progress. It wasn't falsifying. Emma really was improving. Because she was on drugs. Patricia? The conversation was interrupted by a soft knock on the office door. Another parent, Jennifer Martinez, peered in with concern. Oh, sorry to interrupt, but is everything okay? We could hear shouting. I looked at Jennifer, remembering that her daughter Chloe was one of the children whose photos I had found in Margaret's files. Jennifer, I need to ask you something. Has anyone offered to help Chloe with supplements or special nutrition for gymnastics? Jennifer's expression changed immediately. Why would you ask that? Just answer the question. Well, actually, yes. Margaret mentioned that she had been helping Emma with focus and energy. She offered to share some natural remedies with Chloe if I was interested. My heart sank. When was this? About 2 weeks ago. She said Emma's improvement had been so remarkable that other parents were asking about her methods. I looked at Patricia, who was now openly sobbing. How many other parents has my mother approached? I don't know, Patricia whispered. She asked me to provide progress reports on several children. She said she was thinking of starting a support group for parents of competitive athletes. Jennifer stepped fully into the office. What's this about? Is Emma okay? Emma is in the hospital. My mother has been giving her dangerous drugs disguised as herbal tea. Jennifer gasped. Oh my God, but Margaret seemed so knowledgeable about nutrition and training. Jennifer, if Margaret gave you anything for Chloe, you need to take her to the doctor immediately. She didn't give me anything yet. She said she was still perfecting her formula and would contact me when it was ready. I felt a chill. She's still actively recruiting other children. Patricia spoke up through her tears. There were 3 other families she asked me about. The Roberts family, the Williamses, and Michael Thompson with his daughter Grace. Asked you what about them? Their training schedules, their financial situations, how involved the parents were in the children's athletics. She said she was thinking of offering scholarships or sponsorships to promising young athletes. The scope of Margaret's operation was becoming clear. She hadn't just been experimenting on Emma, she had been building a network to systematically drug multiple children. Jennifer pulled out her phone. I'm calling the other parents right now. If Margaret approached me, she might have approached them too. While Jennifer made phone calls, I pressed Patricia for more information. Did my mother ever mention where she was getting her supplements? She said she had connections in the sports medicine community, people who specialized in youth athletic development. Name's Patricia. I need names. She mentioned someone called Dr. Bradley, but I don't think he was a real doctor. And there was a woman named Susan who supposedly had experience with Olympic training programs. My phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Hartwell. Emma's blood work shows traces of compounds used in professional sports enhancement. This is a federal matter now. I showed the text to Patricia. The FBI is going to get involved. If you've been taking money to help my mother poison children, you need to come forward now and cooperate. Patricia nodded miserably. I never meant for anyone to get hurt. I thought I was helping talented children get opportunities. Jennifer finished her phone calls and turned back to us with a grim expression. I reached Sarah Williams. She said Margaret gave her daughter Kelly a special protein powder 2 weeks ago. Kelly has been having trouble sleeping and lost her appetite, but Sarah thought it was stress from starting middle school. What about the others? Michael Thompson said Margaret offered to help with Grace's training expenses in exchange for letting her try some new nutrition protocols. He turned her down because it sounded too good to be true. But Lisa, the Roberts family, I couldn't reach them. They're out of town this week. Where did they go? Some kind of gymnastics camp in Colorado. Margaret recommended it. I felt my blood turn cold. Patricia, did Margaret arrange for any children to attend out-of-state training camps? She mentioned that she was exploring options for advanced training opportunities. She said she had contacts at several elite facilities. I grabbed Patricia's arm. If Margaret sent children to camps where she has connections, she could be dosing them there without parental supervision. Oh God, Jennifer whispered. What kind of person does this to children? I was already dialing Dr. Hartwell's number. Doctor, we have a much bigger problem. I think my mother has been trafficking drugged children to training camps where she can experiment on them without parents watching. Lisa, you need to call the FBI immediately. This has moved beyond local child endangerment. We're looking at interstate trafficking and organized child abuse. As I hung up, I realized that saving Emma was only the beginning. Margaret's web of manipulation and abuse extended far beyond my family, and I was the only one who could expose it all. I spent the next 2 hours at the FBI field office providing Agent Torres with every piece of evidence I had gathered. Agent Torres was a serious woman in her 30s who specialized in crimes against children. She listened intently as I explained Margaret's documentation, the network of parents, and the possibility that children were being drugged at out-of-state camps. We'll need to coordinate with authorities in Colorado to check on the Roberts family immediately, Agent Torres said. And Ms. Lisa, you need to understand that your mother is likely going to escalate her attempts to control this situation once she realizes we're investigating. What do you mean? People who commit systematic abuse often react aggressively when exposed. She may try to manipulate you, threaten you, or attempt to discredit your accusations. I drove back to the hospital to check on Emma, who was looking much better after 24 hours of IV fluids and medical monitoring. Her color was returning to normal, and she was sitting up in bed working on a coloring book. Mommy, when can I go home? Tomorrow morning, sweetheart. Dr. Hartwell says you're getting much better. But I missed my competition. Coach Patricia will be upset. Coach Patricia understands that you're sick, and Emma, we need to talk about Grandma Margaret's tea. Emma's face fell. Am I in trouble? No, honey, you're not in trouble at all, but that tea was making you sick and you won't be drinking it anymore. But Grandma said it would make me strong enough to win states. Emma, you're already strong enough. You don't need anything special to be a great gymnast. Oh, but what if I can't do my routines without it? What if I'm not good anymore? My heart broke hearing the doubt in her voice. Margaret had convinced my 9-year-old daughter that her natural abilities weren't enough. We were interrupted by a commotion in the hallway. Through Emma's door, I could see Margaret approaching with a man in an expensive suit. Hospital security was trying to intercept them, but the man was waving some kind of document and demanding access. "Stay here, Emma," I said, stepping into the hallway. "Lisa," Margaret called out when she saw me. "This is completely unnecessary. Emma doesn't belong in the hospital." The man in the suit approached me with a business card. "Ms. Lisa, I'm attorney David Reynolds. Mrs. Margaret has retained my services regarding the custody and welfare of your daughter." "What custody?" "Mrs. Margaret has filed for emergency grandparental rights based on evidence of medical neglect and parental incompetence." I stared at Margaret in shock. "You're trying to take Emma away from me." "I'm trying to protect her from your hysteria," Margaret said. "One minor incident with some herbal tea, and you have her in the hospital being pumped full of chemicals." "Minor incident, Mom, you poisoned her." Attorney Reynolds held up a hand. "Mrs. Margaret has documented evidence that Emma has thrived under her guidance. Emma's gymnastics scores have improved dramatically. Her confidence has increased, and she has formed a strong bond with her grandmother." "Because she was on drugs." "Oh, that's your allegation," Reynolds said. "But Mrs. Margaret has receipts showing she purchased natural herbal supplements from legitimate suppliers. Any adverse effects were clearly unintentional." Margaret stepped closer to me, lowering her voice. "Lisa, honey, you're not thinking clearly. You've been under so much stress since David deployed. You're working long hours. You're exhausted, and now you're imagining conspiracies that don't exist." "I found your laboratory, Mom. I found your notebook documenting Emma's drug protocol. You found my nutrition journal where I tracked Emma's progress with perfectly legal supplements. Lisa, you've always been prone to anxiety and overreaction." Reynolds nodded sympathetically. "Mrs. Margaret has provided evidence that you've struggled with postpartum depression, that you've missed several of Emma's competitions due to work conflicts, and that you've been increasingly unstable since your husband's deployment." I felt like I was in a nightmare. "That's not true." "We have photographs, Lisa," Margaret said softly. "Pictures of Emma's room where dirty laundry has been piling up for weeks. Pictures of empty pizza boxes and takeout containers in your kitchen. Evidence that you've been neglecting basic household management and relying on me to provide proper care for Emma." I realized with horror that Margaret had been documenting my life, collecting evidence to use against me. Every time she had visited, she had been building a case. "Agent Torres warned me you would do this," I said. "Agent Torres?" Reynolds looked alarmed. "You've contacted federal authorities without consulting with Emma's other caregivers." "Emma doesn't have other caregivers. I'm her mother." "Okay, and I'm her grandmother, who has been providing daily support while you work 50-hour weeks," Margaret said. "Lisa, I've been helping you hold your life together, and this is how you repay me." A nurse approached our group. "Excuse me, but you're disturbing other patients. This conversation needs to move somewhere private." Reynolds handed me a legal document. "This is a temporary restraining order requiring you to allow Mrs. Margaret supervised visitation with Emma and a court hearing scheduled for Friday to address custody arrangements." "You can't do this." Lisa, I don't want to do this," Margaret said, tears starting in her eyes. "But you're clearly having some kind of breakdown. Emma needs stability, and I can provide that." "The stability of being systematically poisoned." The stability of a grandmother who loves her and wants to see her succeed versus a mother who's seeing conspiracies everywhere and dragging a 9-year-old through unnecessary medical procedures. Reynolds added, "We have statements from Coach Patricia confirming that Emma has been thriving in gymnastics and that Mrs. Margaret's support has been instrumental in her development. Patricia is part of this. She took money from Margaret to falsify Emma's progress reports." "That's a very serious accusation, Obas," Reynolds said. "Do you have proof?" "I have Margaret's notebook documenting the payments." "You mean the notebook where a caring grandmother tracked her granddaughter's athletic achievements and the small amounts she contributed to coaching fees?" I realized that every piece of evidence I had could be reinterpreted through Margaret's version of events. She had been planning this defense for months, creating alternative explanations for everything. Margaret stepped closer and spoke quietly. "Lisa, I've already spoken to Child Protective Services. I told them I was concerned about your emotional state and Emma's welfare. They're planning a home visit tomorrow." "You called CPS on me." "I called them because I love Emma and I'm worried about both of you. You need help, honey, professional help." "The help I need is protection from you." Reynolds checked his watch. "Mrs. Margaret, we should let the hospital staff complete their procedures. Lisa, you'll receive notice about Friday's hearing. I strongly recommend you retain counsel." After they left, I sat in Emma's room, shaking with rage and fear. My daughter was coloring peacefully, unaware that her grandmother was trying to legally steal her away from me. "Mommy, why was Grandma crying?" "She's upset because you're in the hospital." "But I'm feeling better. Can't we just go home and forget about all this?" "It's not that simple, sweetheart." My phone buzzed with a text from Agent Torres. "Colorado authorities found the Roberts family. Their daughter has been hospitalized with similar symptoms. We're building a federal case. Don't let your mother isolate you." I looked at Emma, who had gone back to coloring, and made a decision. Margaret wanted a fight. She was going to get one. The next morning, Emma was discharged from the hospital with strict instructions to avoid all supplements and to follow up with Dr. Santos, her pediatrician, for continued monitoring. As we drove home, I explained to Emma that things were going to be different for a while. "Hey, sweetheart Grandma Margaret and I are having a disagreement about what's best for you. Until we work things out, she won't be visiting us at home." "Are you mad at Grandma?" "I'm not mad, but I'm very worried about your health. The tea she was giving you was making you sick." "But I felt strong when I drank it." "That's because it had medicine in it that made your heart beat faster, but it was hurting other parts of your body." When we arrived home, a white sedan was parked in our driveway. A woman in a business suit got out as we pulled up. "Miss Lisa, I'm Janet Coleman from Child Protective Services. I'm here for the home evaluation we scheduled." "We didn't schedule any evaluation." "Mrs. Margaret filed a report expressing concerns about Emma's welfare. I'm required to investigate." My hands clenched around the steering wheel. Margaret had moved faster than I expected. "Emma, honey, go inside and get your afternoon snack. I need to talk to Ms. Coleman for a few minutes." Inside the house, Janet Coleman walked through each room with a clipboard making notes. I followed her, watching her document things I had never considered before. Emma's bedroom had toys scattered on the floor. There were dishes in the kitchen sink from breakfast. And yes, there was a pile of laundry on the couch waiting to be folded. "Lisa, can you tell me about Emma's recent hospitalization?" "She was poisoned by substances my mother gave her disguised as herbal tea." "That's a serious allegation. Has your mother been charged with a crime?" "The FBI is investigating." Janet Coleman made a note. "And you believe your mother intentionally harmed Emma?" "I have documentation proving she systematically gave Emma dangerous stimulants for months." "But you allowed this to continue." The question caught me off guard. I didn't know what was in the tea. My mother told me it was herbs. "How often do you work outside the home?" "I work full-time, but Emma is in school during the day and aftercare until I pick her up." "Oh, and your husband?" "He's deployed with the army. He's been overseas for 4 months. Janet Coleman continued making notes. Mrs. Margaret mentioned that she's been providing significant childcare support. She babysits occasionally and takes Emma to gymnastics twice a week. Mrs. Margaret says she's been providing daily assistance with meals, transportation, and supervision. I felt my anger rising. That's not true. She provided photographs showing concerning conditions in your home. What kind of conditions? Janet Coleman showed me printouts of photos on her tablet. They showed Emma's room with clothes and toys scattered around our kitchen with takeout containers visible, and our living room with laundry baskets and work papers spread on the coffee table. These photos were taken without my permission in my own home. They show potential neglect of household management and child supervision. They show a working mother's house on a busy week. Ms. Lisa, I'm also required to ask about your mental health. Are you currently receiving any treatment for depression or anxiety? No, because I don't need treatment. Mrs. Margaret expressed concern that you've been under unusual stress since your husband deployed. Of course I've been stressed. I'm a single parent dealing with a military deployment, but that doesn't make me unfit. Janet Coleman interviewed Emma privately while I waited in the kitchen. Through the closed door, I could hear Emma's sweet voice answering questions about school friends and our daily routine. After an hour, Janet Coleman prepared to leave. Ms. Lisa, I'm not removing Emma from your care at this time. However, I am requiring supervised visits with Mrs. Margaret until the court hearing on Friday. You're making me allow my mother access to Emma after she poisoned her. I'm following the legal documents filed by Mrs. Margaret's attorney. Emma will be safe during supervised visits. Who supervises the visits? Mrs. Margaret has proposed that they take place at Elite Gymnastics Center under Coach Patricia's supervision. I laughed bitterly. Coach Patricia was taking money from my mother to falsify Emma's progress reports. That's another serious allegation. Do you have evidence? Yes, I have evidence. But apparently, no one wants to listen to it. After Janet Coleman left, I called Dr. Santos and scheduled an appointment for Emma's follow-up exam. Then I called attorney Jennifer Walsh, whom Agent Torres had recommended. Ms. Walsh, I need legal representation immediately. My mother is trying to take custody of my daughter, and CPS is treating me like the problem instead of her. Can you come in this afternoon, bring all the evidence you've collected? At Attorney Walsh's office, I spread Margaret's notebook, the photographs, and the medical records across her conference table. This is one of the most disturbing cases I've seen, Attorney Walsh said after reviewing everything. But I have to warn you, your mother has built a very convincing alternative narrative. What do you mean? She's positioned herself as the concerned grandmother trying to protect Emma from an unstable mother. The photos, she took the statements from Coach Patricia, the timing of her custody filing, right after Emma's hospitalization, it all supports her story. But what about the evidence of systematic poisoning? We'll present all of that. But Lisa family court judges see a lot of contentious custody battles where one side accuses the other of abuse. Your mother's lawyer is going to argue that you're a stressed military wife who's having a breakdown and imagining conspiracies. So how do we win? We need Emma's medical records to clearly show the effects of systematic drugging. We need testimony from Dr. Hartwell about the dangerous levels of stimulants. And we need Agent Torres to testify about the federal investigation. What if that's not enough? Zor, then we fight harder. But Lisa, you need to be prepared for the possibility that the judge might order temporary custody to your mother while investigations continue. That evening, I sat with Emma while she did her homework at the kitchen table. Mommy, are you and Grandma going to stop fighting soon? I hope so, sweetheart. I miss her. Even if the tea made me sick, she was just trying to help me be better at gymnastics. I know you miss her, Emma, and I know she loves you. But sometimes people make bad choices even when they love us. Will I still get to do gymnastics? Of course, but we're going to make sure you're healthy and strong without any special drinks or supplements. What if I'm not good anymore without them? I knelt down beside her chair. Emma, you were always good. The tea didn't make you talented, it just made you think you needed it. Your talent comes from your hard work and practice. I promise? I promise. But as I tucked Emma into bed that night, I knew that Friday's court hearing would determine whether I could keep those promises. Margaret had spent months building her case against me, and I had 3 days to prove that the woman who had raised me was now the greatest threat to my daughter's safety. Friday morning arrived gray and rainy, matching my mood as Attorney Walsh and I walked into the family courthouse. The building smelled of coffee and anxiety, filled with other families fighting their own battles over children and custody. Margaret sat at a table across the courtroom with Attorney Reynolds looking every inch the concerned grandmother in her navy blue dress and pearl necklace. When she saw me, she offered a sad smile that would have seemed loving to anyone who didn't know what she had done. Judge Patricia Brennan was a woman in her 60s with silver hair and kind eyes that I hoped would see through Margaret's manipulation. This is a hearing regarding emergency grandparental rights filed by Margaret Williams concerning the welfare of 9-year-old Emma Davis, Judge Brennan announced. Attorney Reynolds stood first. Your Honor, Mrs. Margaret is seeking temporary custody of her granddaughter due to serious concerns about the child's mother's mental state and ability to provide appropriate care. He presented his case methodically, the photographs of our chaotic home statements about my work schedule and stress levels, and Margaret's role as Emma's primary caregiver and support system. Mrs. Margaret has been instrumental in Emma's development, particularly in her gymnastics training, where Emma has shown remarkable improvement under her grandmother's guidance. Reynolds continued, the recent hospitalization was the result of an accidental mix-up with herbal supplements, but Mrs. Lisa's extreme reaction reveals concerning paranoia and instability. When it was our turn, Attorney Walsh stood confidently. Your Honor, what we have here is not a concerned grandmother, but a systematic case of child abuse disguised as athletic support. She presented Dr. Hartwell's medical testimony about the dangerous levels of stimulants found in both Margaret's and Emma's blood, the documented evidence from Margaret's own notebook showing months of deliberate drugging, and Agent Torres's statement about the federal investigation into interstate child trafficking. Mrs. Margaret didn't accidentally give Emma herbal tea. She systematically poisoned this child with performance-enhancing drugs while documenting the effects like a laboratory experiment. Judge Brennan examined Margaret's notebook, carefully reading page after page of detailed entries about dosages, Emma's reactions, and plans for escalation. Mrs. Margaret, can you explain these entries referring to Formula A and enhanced compounds? Margaret stood gracefully. Your Honor, I'm not a professional trainer, so I used terminology I found in articles about sports nutrition. I was simply trying to help Emma with natural supplements. These entries mention suppliers and purchasing drugs from multiple sources. I researched different vitamin companies to find the best natural products for growing athletes. Judge Brennan held up a page from the notebook. This entry says, and I quote, Emma's plateau requires stronger enhancement. New supplier promises breakthrough results. How do you explain that? I was looking for better quality vitamins when the first ones didn't seem to be helping with Emma's energy levels. It was a smooth answer, but I could see doubt creeping into Judge Brennan's expression. Mrs. Margaret, are you familiar with federal laws regarding performance-enhancing substances in youth athletics? I've never given Emma anything illegal, Your Honor. Everything was natural herbal supplements. Dr. Hartwell was called to testify via video conference. The substances found in both patients' blood were synthetic compounds, not available through normal retail channels. These are drugs typically associated with professional sports enhancement networks. What doctor, in your medical opinion, could these have been the result of accidental consumption of natural supplements? Absolutely not, Your Honor. The levels and combinations we found could only result from systematic administration of manufactured stimulants. Margaret's attorney objected. Your Honor, Dr. Hartwell can't definitively state how these substances entered the patient's systems. Sustained, Judge Brennan said, but I'm troubled by the medical evidence. Then, Attorney Walsh made a request that surprised everyone. Your Honor, I'd like permission for Emma to speak with you privately about her experiences. Margaret's attorney immediately objected. Your Honor, 9-year-old children shouldn't be subjected to the trauma of custody proceedings. Whoa, I disagree, Judge Brennan said. Emma is old enough to express her feelings about her living situation. I'll speak with her in my chambers. 20 minutes later, Judge Brennan returned to the courtroom with Emma, who looked very small, walking beside the judge in her pink dress and white shoes. Emma has some things she'd like to share with the court, Judge Brennan announced. Emma approached the witness stand, and the bailiff helped her adjust the microphone. Emma, can you tell us about the special tea your grandmother gave you? Attorney Walsh asked gently. It tasted really bad, Emma said in her clear, sweet voice. Like medicine mixed with honey. It made my tummy hurt every time. What did you tell your grandmother about the taste? I told her it was yucky, but she said I had to drink all of it or I wouldn't be strong enough for gymnastics. How did you feel after drinking the tea? Weird. My heart would go really fast and I felt buzzy, like when you drink too much soda. Sometimes I felt sick and dizzy. Did you tell anyone else about how the tea made you feel? I told Mommy my tummy hurt, but Grandma said that was normal and it meant the vitamins were working. Margaret was crying now, but Judge Brennan continued with the questioning. Emma, did your grandmother ever tell you not to mention the tea to your mother? She said it was our special secret for gymnastics. She said Mommy might not understand because she never did sports. How do you feel about gymnastics now? I'm scared, Emma said softly. What if I'm not good anymore without the tea? What if I can't do my routines? Emma, do you want to keep drinking the tea? No, it made me feel sick, but I want to be good at gymnastics. Judge Brennan asked her final question. Emma, where do you feel safest? With Mommy, she takes care of me and doesn't make me drink things that taste bad. There wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom when Emma finished speaking. Margaret's attorney tried to salvage the situation. Your Honor, Emma is clearly confused about normal sports nutrition practices. But Judge Brennan had heard enough. I'm going to be very direct, Mrs. Margaret. A 9-year-old child has testified that you systematically forced her to consume substances that made her ill while telling her it was necessary for athletic success. This child has been hospitalized with drug poisoning, and there's evidence you've been connected to similar incidents with other children. Margaret stood up suddenly. That little girl is lying. I would never hurt Emma. Everything I did was to make her strong and successful. Mrs. Margaret, please control yourself. No, I won't sit here and listen to lies. Emma was mediocre before I helped her. She was weak and average, and I made her special. I made her a winner. The courtroom fell silent at Margaret's outburst. Attorney Reynolds was frantically trying to get her to sit down and stop talking. I spent thousands of dollars on the best compounds available. I researched everything I tracked. Every response, Emma was going to be nationally competitive. Mrs. Margaret, you're admitting to giving this child drugs, Judge Brennan said sternly. I was giving her what she needed to succeed. Lisa is weak, just like Emma was. She doesn't understand what it takes to be a champion. Security guards stepped forward as Margaret's voice rose higher. Emma could have been at the Olympics. She could have had scholarships, endorsements, everything, but now you're going to ruin her future because you're all too weak to understand greatness. Mrs. Margaret, you will sit down immediately or be held in contempt. Margaret finally stopped shouting, but the damage was done. Her mask had slipped, completely revealing the obsession and lack of remorse that drove her actions. Judge Brennan's voice was cold when she announced her decision. I'm denying the petition for grandparental custody. Furthermore, I'm issuing a restraining order prohibiting Mrs. Margaret from any contact with Emma until criminal proceedings are resolved. Margaret screamed as security escorted her from the courtroom, still insisting that she had been helping Emma achieve greatness. I held Emma close as we left the courthouse, finally free from Margaret's manipulation, but knowing that the road to healing was just beginning. 6 months later, I stood in the gymnasium watching Emma compete in her first meet since the poisoning. She looked healthy again. Her cheeks had filled out, she was sleeping through the night, and most importantly, she was smiling as she performed her floor routine. The journey to get here hadn't been easy. Margaret was convicted on multiple federal charges, including child endangerment, conspiracy to distribute controlled substances, and interstate trafficking of drugged minors. The investigation revealed that her network extended to gymnastics programs in 4 states, affecting 12 children whose parents had trusted her expertise. She received a 15-year federal prison sentence. Coach Patricia lost her coaching license permanently and received 5 years of probation for accepting money to falsify athletic progress reports. Elite Gymnastics Center was shut down pending a complete investigation of their training practices. The other children affected by Margaret's scheme all recovered physically, though several required months of therapy to rebuild their confidence in sports and their relationships with their parents. Jennifer Martinez's daughter Chloe decided to quit gymnastics entirely, saying she never wanted to wonder again whether her achievements were real or artificial. The Roberts family, whose daughter had been drugged at the Colorado training camp, filed a civil lawsuit that resulted in the camp's closure and criminal charges against 2 staff members who had been collaborating with Margaret. Emma and I both attended therapy to process the trauma and rebuild our trust. Dr. Rebecca Kane helped Emma understand that her gymnastics abilities were real and that she never needed artificial enhancement to be successful. It took months for Emma to believe that her improvements in the sport came from her own hard work and natural development. The hardest part for children who've been systematically deceived, Dr. Kane explained to me, is learning to trust their own bodies and abilities again. Emma needs to rediscover who she is as an athlete without chemical assistance. I learned to trust my instincts as a mother and to never again ignore warning signs because someone claimed to know better. The guilt of allowing Margaret access to Emma for so long was crushing, but therapy helped me understand that manipulative people are expert at hiding their true intentions from the people who love them most. Emma switched to a new gymnastics program run by former Olympic coach Maria Santos, who emphasized natural development, proper nutrition, and age-appropriate training. Under Maria's guidance, Emma continued improving at her sport, but slowly and healthily. Real athletic development takes time, Maria explained during our first meeting. Children who are pushed too fast or enhanced artificially often burn out or get injured. Emma has natural talent, but she needs to build it gradually. 6 months after the trial, Emma placed 3rd in floor exercise at a regional competition. As I watched her accept her medal, I remembered how Margaret's lucky tea had once made Emma place higher in competitions, but those victories had been hollow and dangerous. This medal was earned through Emma's own strength practice and determination. Mommy, I did it without any special drinks, Emma whispered when she ran to hug me after the awards ceremony. You did it because you're talented and you worked hard, I told her. That's the only way victories really count. My husband David returned from deployment 2 months ago, and our family is slowly finding its new normal. He was devastated when he learned what had happened during his absence, but therapy has helped us process the guilt and focus on Emma's healing. I should have been here to protect you both, he said during one of our family counseling sessions. You were serving our country, Dr. Kane reminded him. Lisa did everything she could with the information she had. Margaret's deception was sophisticated and deliberate. The legal battles aren't completely over. Several other families affected by Margaret's network have filed civil lawsuits, and I've testified in 3 additional criminal cases against people who were part of her supplement supply chain. Agent Torres tells me that our case has led to the discovery of similar networks in other youth sports, resulting in federal legislation requiring stricter oversight of supplements marketed to young athletes. Emma still loves gymnastics, but now she also plays soccer and takes piano lessons. She's learning that being well-rounded is more important than being exceptional at one thing, and that her worth isn't measured by competition scores. Do you ever miss being really good at gymnastics right away? I asked her recently. Because sometimes, she admitted. But I like knowing that when I do something good now, it's really me doing it. The most important lesson from this experience came during a conversation Emma and I had while making dinner together last week. Why, Mommy, how do you know when someone really loves you versus when they just want you to be what they want you to be? It was such a profound question from my 9-year-old daughter. Real love accepts you as you are and wants you to grow into who you're meant to become, I told her. Fake love tries to change you into something else, even if it hurts you. So Grandma Margaret didn't really love me. She loved the idea of who she wanted you to become, but real love would never risk hurting you to make you into something different. Margaret writes letters from prison asking for forgiveness and claiming she acted out of love for Emma. I don't respond to these letters, and Emma has chosen not to read them. Dr. Kane says that maintaining no contact is the healthiest choice for our family. Some people have asked if I feel guilty about sending my own mother to prison. The answer is no. Margaret made deliberate choices to endanger children, including my daughter, in pursuit of her twisted vision of success. The woman who raised me disappeared somewhere along the way, replaced by someone whose love had become possessive and dangerous. Today, as I watch Emma laugh with her teammates after practice, I'm grateful for the courage to fight back when it mattered most. Emma is healthy, happy, and learning that her value comes from being herself, not from being artificially enhanced or manipulated into someone else's vision of greatness. The scars from this experience will always be part of our story, but they've also taught us the difference between real love and toxic control, between genuine support and dangerous manipulation, between natural achievement and artificial enhancement. Most importantly, Emma has learned that she is enough exactly as she is, and that lesson is worth more than any medal or competition score. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where someone you trusted was actually harming you or your loved ones in the name of help or love? How did you find the strength to recognize the truth and fight back? I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like this video to help other parents learn to trust their instincts when something feels wrong. Subscribe for more stories about overcoming family challenges and protecting our children. And please share this video with other parents who might benefit from hearing about the importance of questioning authority figures, even when they're family members. Thank you for listening to our journey from deception to healing. Remember that your children's health and safety are always worth fighting for, no matter who you have to fight against. Stay strong, trust your instincts, and never let anyone convince you that love requires accepting harm.